I stood in my father's study, gripping the leather chair until my knuckles turned white. The trust fund I'd counted on for law school, gone. Just like that. My brother Jeremy lounged against the mahogany desk, a smirk playing at the corners of his mouth. Blair, sweetheart, be reasonable, my mother said, her perfectly manicured hands clasped in front of her. The family business needs that money. Your brother has such promising ideas for expansion. I'm Blair Harper, and at 22, I learned exactly where I stood in my family's hierarchy. Promising ideas? I couldn't keep the bitterness from my voice. Like the nightclub venture that lost $500,000 in 6 months? That was a learning experience, Jeremy cut in, straightening his designer tie. Dad and Mom understand the value of taking risks in business. Our father raised his hand, silencing us both. Blair, we've discussed this. Law school is an interesting hobby, but it's not a practical career choice for someone of your standing. The money will be better used supporting your brother's ventures. Hobby? The word felt like acid on my tongue. I graduated summa cum laude. I've already been accepted to, which is very impressive, dear, Mother interrupted. But really, when was the last time you saw a woman from our circle practicing law? It's not appropriate. I looked between them, Mother with her concerned frown, Father focused on his laptop screen, and Jeremy wearing that insufferable grin. The same scene had played out countless times throughout my childhood. Jeremy's mediocre report cards earned praise while my academic achievements were met with polite disinterest. His failed business attempts were learning experiences, while my ambitions were dismissed as flights of fancy. That trust fund was from grandmother, I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. She specifically left it for my education. And as trustees, we have the right to determine its best use, Father replied without looking up. The decision is final. I grabbed my bag from the floor, my hands shaking. You know what? Keep the money. I'll figure it out myself. Don't be dramatic, Blair, Mother sighed. Why don't you help Jeremy with the marketing for his new restaurant concept? You've always had such a good eye for design. I stopped at the door. You really don't get it, do you? This isn't about the money anymore. This is about you never believing in me. Jeremy laughed. Come on, sis. Don't make this into one of your scenes. My scenes? I spun around. Like your scene when you crashed Dad's Porsche and blamed it on the valet, or when you borrowed Mum's jewellery for your girlfriend and claimed it was stolen. That's enough, Father's voice boomed through the study. Blair, you're upset, and you're not thinking clearly. Go home, calm down, and we'll discuss this later. There's nothing to discuss. I pulled open the heavy door. I'm done trying to earn your approval. I'm done watching you hand everything to Jeremy while I fight for scraps of attention. I'm going to law school and I'm going to succeed, without your money and without your support. Blair! Mother started, but I was already walking away. My heels clicked against the marble floors of our family estate for what I knew would be the last time. Tears burned behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Not here. Not where they could see. My phone buzzed as I reached my car. A text from Lauren, my best friend since college. How'd it go? Want to meet for coffee? I typed back quickly. They gave my trust fund to Jeremy. Meeting in 20 at our usual spot. The response was immediate. Those bastards, I'm ordering you the biggest chocolate muffin they have. Starting my car, I caught a glimpse of movement in the study window. Jeremy stood there watching me with that same smug expression. I held his gaze for a moment, then pulled away from the mansion that had never truly felt like home. They thought denying me the trust fund would force me to give up on law school, to fall in line with their expectations. They thought I'd cave and accept the comfortable, confined life they'd planned for me. They were wrong. I didn't know it then, but that day marked the beginning of something bigger than my dream of becoming a lawyer. It was the day I stopped being the dutiful daughter who sought their approval and started becoming someone they would one day need to reckon with. Let them laugh. Let them dismiss me. Let them think they'd won. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, my resolve hardening with each mile between me and that suffocating house. They had no idea what I was capable of, but they would learn. Oh, they would learn. Another double shift? Lauren raised her eyebrows as I changed into my waitressing uniform in the restaurant's cramped break room. Blair, you're going to burn yourself out before classes even start. Can't afford to burn out, I said, tying my apron. Law school isn't going to pay for itself. 6 months had passed since I'd walked out of my family's estate. 6 months of working 2 jobs, living on coffee, and sleeping on Lauren's pull-out couch. Every penny I earned went straight into my law school fund. At least let me cover dinner tonight, Lauren insisted. You look like you haven't eaten a proper meal in days. Before I could argue, Marcus, the head waiter, stuck his head in. Blair, table 12 needs their orders taken, and some fancy lawyer type is asking for you at the bar. I froze. Lawyer type? Says his name is Justin. Regular customer, always tips well. I knew exactly who he meant. Justin Gardner was a partner at one of the city's top law firms and a frequent customer during my evening shifts. He'd taken an interest in my law school ambitions, often sharing stories about his cases between courses. Go, Lauren nudged me. I'll handle 12. I found Justin at his usual spot, nursing a scotch. He looked up from a stack of papers and smiled. Blair, I was hoping you'd be working tonight. What can I get you, Mr. Gardner? Justin, he corrected. And actually, I have something for you. He slid an envelope across the bar. It's an opportunity if you're interested. Inside was an offer letter for a paid internship at his firm. My hands trembled as I read it. It's part-time, he explained. Flexible hours, better pay than waiting tables. Plus, it'll look great on your law school applications. I don't understand. Why me? Because you remind me of myself at your age. Determined, hard-working, fighting against the odds. He took a sip of scotch. Lauren told me about your situation with your family. Lauren did what? I spun around to find my best friend suddenly very interested in arranging wine glasses. Don't be angry with her, Justin said. She was trying to help. Look, Blair, I've been watching you juggle 2 jobs while preparing for law school. That kind of dedication is rare. My firm could use someone like you. I appreciate the offer, but I can't accept charity. Charity? He laughed. Trust me, we'll work you hard enough that you'll earn every penny. This isn't a handout, Blair. It's an investment in talent. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. Jeremy's name flashed on the screen. I declined the call. Family? Justin asked. They call sometimes, usually when they're drunk or need something. I tucked the phone away. I stopped answering months ago. You know, success is the best revenge. Justin stood, straightening his tie. Think about the offer. The position starts next month. After he left, Lauren ambushed me. Well, did you take it? I haven't decided. I showed her the offer letter. It's more money than both my current jobs combined. Then what's holding you back? What if I'm not good enough? What if... Stop. Lauren grabbed my shoulders. You are the smartest person I know. You got into law school on your own merit. You've survived 6 months without touching a penny of family money. You are absolutely good enough. My phone buzzed again. This time, a text from Jeremy. Mom's crying again because you won't come to Sunday dinner. Stop being so selfish. Lauren read the message over my shoulder and snorted. Selfish? That's rich coming from him. I deleted the message without responding. You know what? You're right. I'm taking the internship. Yes, Lauren hugged me tight. This calls for celebration. Drinks after your shift? Can't. I have LSAT prep class at 7 a.m. Tomorrow, then. No excuses. She pointed at the offer letter. This is your turning point, Blair. Everything changes from here. Looking at the letter again, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Hope. Maybe Lauren was right. Maybe this was my turning point. That night, as I served my last table, I imagined Jeremy's face when he eventually learned I'd made it to law school without our family's money. I imagined my parents' reactions when they realized their impractical daughter had succeeded despite their lack of faith. My phone buzzed one final time. Mother, darling, please be reasonable. Come home. We can discuss alternatives to law school. I blocked the number without hesitation. There would be no more discussions, no more alternatives, no more seeking their approval. I had my own path now, and for the first time, I was certain it was the right one. Tomorrow, I would accept Justin's offer. Tomorrow, I would take another step toward proving them all wrong. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. The day I passed the bar exam, Justin called me into his office. 3 years of law school, countless sleepless nights, and endless cups of coffee had led to this moment. "Close the door, Blair." He gestured to the chair across from his desk. "I have news." My heart raced. I'd been working as a law clerk at his firm throughout school, hoping to secure an associate position after graduation. "The partners met this morning," he said, shuffling through some papers. "They've made their decision about the new associates." And, he looked up, his expression serious, then a smile broke across his face. "Welcome to the firm, counsellor." I collapsed into the chair, relief washing over me. "Really? Top of your class, excellent recommendations, and 3 years of practical experience with us already. It was an easy decision." He slid a contract across the desk. "Your starting salary is all there. Take it home, review it, let me know if you have any questions." My hands shook as I looked at the numbers. It was more money than I'd ever seen. "Thank you, Justin, for everything. You earned this, Blair. No one handed it to you." As if on cue, my phone lit up with a news alert. "Harper Industries faces financial crisis. CEO under investigation." Justin noticed my expression change. "Everything okay?" I showed him the article. "My brother's company. Well, my family's company." He leaned forward, reading quickly. "Securities fraud allegations, mismanagement of funds. This is serious, Blair. Jeremy always did play fast and loose with rules." I couldn't help but feel a twist of satisfaction. Guess those promising ideas finally caught up with him. "Your family might need a good lawyer. They're not my problem anymore." I stood up, tucking the contract into my bag. I haven't spoken to them in 3 years. Back at my desk, Lauren's name flashed on my phone. She'd started at a rival firm last year, but we still met for weekly coffee dates. "Did you see the news?" she asked without preamble. "About Harper Industries?" "Yeah." "Your brother's really done it this time. The SEC is involved." I sighed. Lauren: I know. Not your circus, not your monkeys. But Blair, this is karma at its finest. They gave him your trust fund to invest in the business, and now he's run it into the ground." Before I could respond, my assistant knocked on my door. "Ms. Blair, there's a Mr. Jeremy Harper here to see you." My blood ran cold. "What?" "He says he's your brother. Should I send him away?" Through the glass walls of my office, I could see him standing in the reception area, looking nothing like the smug brother I remembered. His designer suit was wrinkled, his hair disheveled. "Blair?" Lauren was still on the phone. "What are you going to do?" "I'll call you back." I hung up and nodded to my assistant. "Send him in." Jeremy entered like a shadow of his former self. "Hey, sis." "What do you want, Jeremy?" "Can't a brother visit his successful sister?" He tried to smile, but it came out more like a grimace. "Cut the act? I saw the news." He collapsed into a chair. "It's bad, Blair. Really bad. Dad's having heart problems from the stress. Mom's a mess, and the SEC is breathing down my neck. And this concerns me how? We need your help, your legal expertise. The family lawyers are corporate specialists. They're not equipped for this kind of situation." I laughed, the sound harsh even to my own ears. "You must be truly desperate to come to me. I know we treated you terribly." His voice cracked. "I know we didn't support your dreams. But please, Blair, the company will go under without help." "The company you ran into the ground with my trust fund money?" He flinched. "I deserve that. But this isn't just about me. It's about Dad's legacy, about the employees who depend on us." I stood up, walking to the window. Below, the city sprawled out, reminding me of how far I'd come from that angry girl in my father's study. "Please, Blair," Jeremy whispered. "Name your price." I turned back to face him, years of hurt and anger crystallizing into something harder, colder. "My price? Oh, brother, you have no idea what this is going to cost you." He looked up, hope and fear warring in his eyes. Does that mean you'll help? I'll think about it. I walked to my door, holding it open. Tell Mum and Dad, I'll be in touch with my terms. After he left, I called Justin's extension. Remember what you said about them needing a good lawyer? Well, you were right. And I think it's time for a family reunion. The family estate looked exactly the same, down to the pretentious lion statues flanking the entrance. Only this time, I wasn't here as the disappointing daughter. I was here as their last hope. Lauren had helped me prepare for this moment. Remember, she'd said, you hold all the cards now. Don't let them manipulate you. I straightened my designer suit, paid for with my own money, and rang the doorbell. Our old housekeeper Maria answered. Miss Blair! Her eyes lit up. It's so good to see you. You too, Maria. I hugged her briefly. Are they in the study? Yes, all waiting for you. Your father? He's not well, Miss Blair. I nodded, keeping my expression neutral as I walked the familiar path to my father's study. 3 years ago, I'd fled this house in tears. Today, I entered with my head high. They were arranged exactly as I'd expected. Father behind his desk, looking frailer than I remembered, Mother perched anxiously on the leather sofa, and Jeremy pacing by the window. Blair. Mother rose, arms outstretched. Darling, you look. Let's skip the reunion pleasantries, I interrupted, setting my briefcase on the desk. I've reviewed the SEC allegations and your company's financial statements. You're in deeper trouble than the news suggests. Father's face tightened. We're aware of the situation. Are you? I pulled out a stack of documents. Because according to these records, Jeremy didn't just mismanage funds, he committed serious securities fraud. We're talking potential prison time. Prison? Mother gasped. But surely you can fix this, Blair. You're a lawyer now. I'm not just any lawyer, Mother. I'm one of the top associates at Gardner & Associates, specializing in securities law and corporate litigation. I let that sink in. The same firm that's handled some of the biggest financial fraud cases in the state. Jeremy stopped pacing. So you'll help us? That depends. I sat in the chair across from Father. What exactly are you asking for? We need you to defend Jeremy, Father said, his voice weaker than I remembered. Handle the SEC investigation, restructure the company. Save your empire? I finished for him. That's quite a tall order considering you didn't even think I was capable of getting through law school. Mother flinched. Blair, please, that was a long time ago. 3 years, I met her gaze. 3 years since you gave my education fund to Jeremy. How much of that money is left, by the way? Jeremy looked away. Blair, none of it, right? You lost it all on your promising ideas. I opened my laptop. Well, here's my idea. I'll take your case, but I have conditions. Father leaned forward. Name them. First, I want full control of the legal strategy. No interference from your other lawyers. Second, my firm's standard fees are non-negotiable. And third, I paused, savouring the moment. I want 51% of the company's remaining shares. Absolutely not! Father slammed his hand on the desk, then winced in pain. Logan, your heart, Mother rushed to his side. It's not a request, it's a requirement, I continued calmly. The company needs new leadership, someone who understands both business and law, someone who can restore its reputation. You can't be serious, Jeremy sputtered. You want to take control of the company? Think of it as karma, brother dear. You got my trust fund. I get your company. I stood up. Those are my terms. Take them or find another lawyer who's willing to risk their reputation on this case. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Jeremy accused. Watching us suffer? No more than you enjoyed watching me struggle. I gathered my things. You have 24 hours to decide. After that, I move on to other cases. Wait, Father called as I reached the door. What makes you think you can save the company? I turned back, because unlike Jeremy, I actually earned my success. I built my career from nothing while he was burning through my money. So yes, I can save the company, but only on my terms. We'll need time to discuss this, Mother said quietly. 24 hours, I repeated. Oh, and Jeremy. I'd avoid making any travel plans. The SEC might have questions about those offshore accounts you thought no one would notice. His face paled. How did you... I'm very good at my job. Something you might want to consider when making your decision. I left them there, the weight of their desperation hanging in the air. As I walked to my car, I heard Mother calling after me. Blair, please, can't we talk about this? I kept walking. They'd had 3 years to talk. Now it was my turn to speak, and they would have to listen, or lose everything they had left. 23 hours and 45 minutes later, my office phone rang. We accept your terms, Father said, his voice strained, but we have conditions of our own. This isn't a negotiation. Hear me out. He paused and I could hear him taking a shaky breath. We want you to train Jeremy in the business aspects, help him understand where he went wrong. I leaned back in my chair. So you still don't trust me to run things alone? That's not what I... Meeting in my office, 1 hour. I cut him off. Bring the shareholders' agreement and Jeremy's resignation letter. Justin knocked on my door as I hung up. They took the bait, just like you predicted. I smiled. Ready to play hardball? I've been waiting 3 years to see you take them down. He checked his watch. Let's review the strategy before they arrive. An hour later, my family filed into the conference room. Jeremy looked like he hadn't slept. Mother's makeup couldn't hide her red eyes. And Father looked old. Before we start, I said, I want to make something clear. This isn't a family meeting. This is a business transaction. Blair, please, Mother began. Mrs. Harper, Justin interrupted smoothly, as your daughter's senior partner, I advise you to treat this as the professional meeting it is. I slid the contracts across the table. Everything's laid out here. 51% ownership transfers to me immediately. Jeremy steps down as CEO but remains on the board in a non-executive capacity. I assume full control of operations and legal strategy. And what about the SEC investigation? Jeremy asked. I've already spoken with them. I pulled out another document. They're willing to settle, but it won't be cheap. The company will need to pay substantial fines, and you'll have to cooperate fully with their investigation. Father scanned the papers. These terms, they're extremely favourable to the SEC. Because I'm not trying to help Jeremy escape consequences, I said flatly. I'm trying to save the company. There's a difference. You really hate us that much? Jeremy's voice cracked. This isn't about hate. I met his eyes. This is about competence. You nearly destroyed a 100-year-old company because you thought rules didn't apply to you, because Mom and Dad never taught you about consequences. That's enough. Father stood up, swaying slightly. You've made your point. Have I? I stood too, matching his stance. Because 3 years ago, you told me law school was an interesting hobby. You gave my future to Jeremy because you thought he deserved it more. How did that work out? Mother started crying softly. Justin cleared his throat. Perhaps we should focus on the agreements, he suggested. The SEC's offer expires at close of business today. Jeremy grabbed the pen first, signing his resignation letter with trembling hands. Father followed, his signature notably weaker than I remembered. Mother hesitated. Darling, are you sure this is what you want? To take everything from your brother? I'm not taking anything, I replied. I'm earning it. Something this family never taught me how to do. She signed. Congratulations, Justin said, gathering the papers. You're now the majority shareholder and CEO of Harper Industries. Father slumped in his chair. What happens now? Now? I opened my laptop. Now I start fixing Jeremy's mistakes, starting with a full audit of all accounts, a restructuring of the board, and a new compliance program. And me? Jeremy asked quietly. You'll work under my direct supervision. Learn how to actually run a business, not just play at it. I looked at our parents, and you two will step back completely. No interference, no complaints, no trying to undermine my authority. You're really going to push us out of our own company? Father's voice was barely a whisper. No, I'm going to save your company, whether you like my methods or not. I stood up. My assistant will show you out. I have work to do. As they left, Mother turned back. Will you at least come to Sunday dinner? I have plans. I didn't look up from my laptop. With people who believed in me when you didn't. The door closed behind them and Justin squeezed my shoulder. You okay? Better than okay. I finally looked up, surprised to find my eyes were dry. I thought this would feel more like revenge, but it just feels like justice. Sometimes they're the same thing. He smiled, ready to show them what you can really do. I nodded, already pulling up the company's financial records. They wanted a businesswoman instead of a lawyer. Well, now they've got both, and I'm just getting started. Through the glass walls, I watched my family walk away, shoulders slumped, finally carrying the weight of their own choices. For the first time in my life, I felt truly powerful. Not because I'd taken something from them, but because I'd proven them wrong in the most spectacular way possible. The board meeting is in 10 minutes, my assistant announced, poking her head into my office. Your brother's already there and he looks nervous. 1 month into my leadership and the changes were already visible. Stock prices had stabilized, employees were more confident, and the SEC settlement was proceeding smoothly. But not everyone was happy about it. I gathered my files and headed to the boardroom. Jeremy sat hunched over his laptop, dark circles under his eyes. He'd spent the past month working alongside me, learning what real business management looked like. Morning, brother. I set my coffee down. Ready for your presentation? He looked up, startled. You're really going to make me do this? Own your mistakes in front of the board. Yes, I am. The board members filed in, mostly new faces I'd appointed, though a few old guards remained. Father insisted on attending despite his health, settling into a chair at the far end. Mother had finally stopped trying to come to meetings. Let's begin, I said, taking my place at the head of the table. Jeremy, please walk us through the audit findings. He stood shakily, clicking through his slides. Each one detailed another mistake, another poor decision, another example of his mismanagement. By the third slide, he was sweating. As you can see, his voice cracked, the previous leadership made several critical errors in... The previous leadership, I interrupted. You mean you, Jeremy. Own it. Yes. I made these decisions. I lost the company millions through poor investments and... He swallowed hard. Fraudulent reporting. Father shifted uncomfortably in his seat. One of the new board members raised her hand. And what steps are being taken to prevent this from happening again? Ms. Harper has implemented new oversight measures, Jeremy replied. All major decisions now require board approval, and we've established a compliance committee. Speaking of compliance, I stood up. I have an announcement. The SEC has agreed to reduce the penalties in exchange for our full cooperation and the implementation of strict internal controls. And Jeremy's role in all this? Father spoke up for the first time. Will he face charges? He'll pay fines and be barred from serving as an officer in any public company for 5 years. I met Jeremy's eyes. But no prison time, assuming he continues to cooperate. Thank you, Jeremy whispered. Don't thank me, I said sharply. I didn't do this for you. I did it for the thousands of employees who depend on this company for their livelihoods. The meeting continued with quarterly projections and restructuring plans. As it wrapped up, Father approached my chair. A word in private, Blair. I followed him to my office, noticing how he leaned heavily on his cane. Once inside, he sank into a chair. You've done well, he admitted. Better than I ever thought possible. Funny how that works when you actually give me a chance. I deserve that. He rubbed his chest absently. But watching you today, you reminded me of my father. He built this company from nothing, just like you built your career. Don't, I warned. Don't try to make this a touching family moment. I'm trying to apologize, Blair. No, you're trying to ease your conscience. I leaned against my desk. You're seeing success and wanting to take credit for it somehow, but you don't get to do that. You don't get to pretend you supported me all along. Blair, please. He clutched his chest suddenly, face contorting. Dad! I rushed forward as he slumped in the chair. Someone call an ambulance. Justin appeared in the doorway. What happened? His heart. Get his medication from his coat pocket. Everything moved in a blur after that. Paramedics, sirens, the rush to the hospital. Mother arrived in tears, Jeremy pacing the waiting room. Hours passed before the doctor emerged. He's stable, she announced, but he needs to avoid stress. No work, no business matters. Mother grabbed my arm. Blair, please, come home. Help us through this. I gently removed her hand. I'll handle the company. I'll make sure everything runs smoothly. But I'm not coming home. He could have died today, and that would have been tragic, I said quietly. But it wouldn't change the past. It wouldn't change who we are. I walked away, my heels clicking on the hospital floor, leaving them with their grief and guilt. Back in my office, I found Justin waiting. Your father okay? He'll live. I sank into my chair. Why doesn't this feel like victory anymore? Because revenge is complicated, he said simply, and family is even more complicated. I stared out at the city lights, wondering if the price of success was worth the weight it carried. But I knew one thing for certain. There was no going back now. The quarterly numbers are impressive, Lauren said, scanning the report over coffee. 3 months had passed since Father's heart attack. You've turned the company around faster than anyone expected. The press seems to think so too. I showed her the latest business magazine featuring my photo on the cover. The Prodigal Daughter, How Blair Harper Saved Her Family's Legacy. Have you shown this to your parents? They've seen it. Mother keeps trying to arrange celebration dinners I won't attend. Lauren set down her cup. How's Jeremy handling everything? Actually, I hesitated. He's doing better than expected. Shows up early, stays late, actually learns from his mistakes. It's almost like he's becoming a real adult. Speaking of Jeremy, Lauren nodded toward the cafe entrance. My brother stood there, looking more put together than he had in months. Can I join you? I gestured to an empty chair. He sat, fidgeting with his tie. Lauren, he nodded. Mind if I talk to my sister alone? I should head back to the office anyway. Lauren squeezed my shoulder as she left. Call me later. Jeremy waited until she was gone. I've been reviewing the expansion proposals you asked for. This isn't about work, Jeremy. What do you want? Dad's birthday is next week. He looked down at his hands. The first one since his heart attack. Mum's planning a small dinner, family only. I already told her I'm not coming. I know. That's not why I'm here. He pulled out an envelope. I found this while cleaning out my old office. It's from 3 years ago. Inside was a letter, dated the day after I'd been denied my trust fund. My hands shook as I read, Dear Mr. Gardner, I'm writing to recommend my sister Blair for any entry-level positions at your firm. She's brilliant, determined, and deserves a chance that our family isn't giving her. I know I'm the last person who should be asking for favours, considering how I've treated her, but please consider meeting with her. Sincerely, Jeremy Harper. I looked up. You wrote to Justin. I wrote to every major law firm in the city. He ran a hand through his hair. I knew what we did was wrong. I was too much of a coward to stand up to Mom and Dad, but I thought maybe I could help secretly. Justin never mentioned this. Because I called him the next day and asked him not to. Told him to make any offer based solely on your merit. He smiled sadly. I knew you wouldn't want my help anyway. I stared at the letter, emotions warring inside me. Why are you showing me this now? Because I'm tired of secrets. Tired of pretending. He leaned forward. You were right about everything, Blair. I didn't deserve the trust fund. I didn't deserve to run the company. But watching you these past months, seeing how you handle everything, I'm proud to be your brother. Jeremy. Let me finish. You don't have to come to Dad's birthday. You don't have to forgive any of us. But I need you to know that not everyone in this family doubted you. I was just too weak to show it. My phone buzzed. A message from Justin. Remember that meeting you've been avoiding with the Asian investors? They're in the lobby. I have to go. I stood up, still clutching the letter. Blair? Jeremy called as I reached the door. For what it's worth, you're a better CEO than I ever could have been. Back at the office, I couldn't focus on the investor meeting. Justin noticed. Everything okay? I showed him the letter. He read it, unsurprised. You knew about this? I knew Jeremy wasn't as confident in his abilities as your parents thought. He handed the letter back. People aren't always what they seem, Blair. Even family. That evening, I sat in my office staring at my phone. Finally, I typed, "Mum, what time is Dad's birthday dinner?" Her response was immediate. 7 p.m. next Thursday. Please come. I thought about Jeremy's letter, about Father's heart attack, about Mother's tears, about revenge and redemption, and the weight of family ties. I'll be there, I replied, but on my terms. No pressure, no guilt, no pretending the past didn't happen. Whatever you want, darling. We just want to see you. I looked out at the city skyline, remembering that angry girl who stormed out of her father's study 3 years ago. She'd wanted revenge, wanted to prove herself, wanted to make them sorry. Well, I'd done all that. Maybe now it was time to prove something else, that success doesn't have to mean solitude, that strength can include forgiveness, that family ties can bend without breaking completely. But first, I had a company to run. I stood outside my parents' house gripping a bottle of Father's favourite scotch. The same lion statues still guarded the entrance, but they didn't seem as intimidating anymore. Lauren's voice echoed in my head from our earlier call. Remember, you're not that powerless girl anymore. You're going in as their equal. The door opened before I could ring the bell. Mother stood there, trying to hide her nervousness behind a smile. Blair, darling, you came. I said I would. I handed her the scotch. Happy birthday, Dad. The study had changed. Father's imposing desk was gone, replaced by comfortable seating arranged in a circle. Jeremy was already there, helping Father adjust his position on a plush armchair. Blair. Father's voice was softer than I remembered. Thank you for coming. I took a seat, noting how the room's power dynamics had shifted. No more hiding behind desks or strategic positioning. Just family, facing each other. Before dinner, Mother said, your father has something to say. He pulled out an envelope, hands trembling slightly. I've been doing a lot of thinking since the heart attack, about legacy, about family, about mistakes. Dad, you don't have to. Yes, I do. He opened the envelope. This is a letter I wrote to my father when I took over the company. I found it recently. Would you like to hear it? I nodded. Dear Father, he read. I know you think I'm too young, too inexperienced to run the company, but I will prove you wrong. I will show you that success isn't measured by age or tradition, but by determination and vision. He looked up at me. Sound familiar? Why are you showing me this? Because I became exactly what I fought against. I became my father, forcing my children into roles that didn't fit, refusing to see their true potential. He set the letter down. I was wrong, Blair. About everything. Jeremy stood up. We have something for you. He retrieved a wooden box from the cabinet. Inside was a familiar document, my original trust fund paperwork. We can't undo what we did, Mother said, but we can try to make it right. We've restored the fund, with interest. I don't need it anymore, I said quietly. We know. Father smiled. That's exactly why you deserve it. You've proven yourself beyond anything we could have imagined. This isn't about money. I stood up, pacing the room. It was never about money. No, Jeremy agreed. It was about respect, recognition, belief. He approached me. Things we should have given you freely. The company's latest board meeting minutes. I pulled out my phone, showing them the screen. Notice anything? Father leaned forward, adjusting his glasses. His eyes widened. You're recommending Jeremy for CFO? He's earned it. I met my brother's shocked gaze. 6 months of hard work, learning from mistakes, proving himself. Sound familiar? Blair, I don't know what to say. Say you'll continue to prove me right. Say you'll help me build something better than what came before. Mother wiped tears from her eyes. Your grandmother would be so proud. Both of you. Actually, I smiled, I have one more announcement. The scholarship foundation I'm establishing in her name, for women pursuing law degrees. The trust fund money will seed it. Father stood slowly, steadying himself. You're a better person than I ever was, Blair. No, I shook my head. I'm just braver. Brave enough to forge my own path, brave enough to succeed, and now brave enough to forgive. Dinner's ready, Maria called from the doorway. As we walked to the dining room, Jeremy caught my arm. Does this mean you'll stop making me get your coffee? Not a chance, I grinned. Consider it ongoing penance. At the table, Father raised his glass. To Blair, who taught us all what real success looks like. And to family, I added, surprising myself, who sometimes need to break apart to grow stronger. Mother reached for my hand under the table. This time, I let her take it. Later that night, as I drove home, Lauren called. How'd it go? Better than expected, I smiled. Turns out revenge isn't as satisfying as redemption. Does this mean you're done making them suffer? Oh, I'll still make them work for it. But maybe, just maybe, we can build something new from the ashes of what we burned down. I pulled into my driveway, looking up at the stars. The angry girl who'd fled this family was gone, replaced by someone stronger, wiser, more complete. Someone who understood that true power isn't in destroying what hurt you, but in creating something better in its place. The company was thriving, the family was healing, and I was finally, truly free. Not because I'd won, but because I'd grown beyond the need to win at all.